man sleep at night when you turn his wife against it. Then alone, you took my wife from me. Before I could even correct her myself, before I could teach her, hey baby, this is the right reason why you got to be right by me, because these people ain't for us. You didn't give him a chance. So he had to show the strength of God through you, and he had to do what he had to do through God. But was it right? Was it wrong? There's many ways to look at it, but God still used the Philistines and Samson and Delilah, because as we continue to read in chapter 16 in the book of Judges, now we meeting who is Delilah. So again, just to retrace the story, chapter 14 was a boy born named Samson, who come from Manoah, his father, that come from the land of Dan. Dan is right near Israel, Gaza, and all these other places.
Okay.
And basically, in order for Samson to be born, the angel had to visit his mother and say, in order for your child to be here, you got to live right and do right. You can't be drinking wine. You can't be getting drunk. You can't be eating this bullshit. You can't do none of that no more. You want to have a baby, you got to eat clean, live clean, and be clean, and you will have a child.
All right.
That don't mean that the angel had to go above and do something extra special. It just means she had to cleanse her body and get her body
Come on,
to conceive a child. It took an angel to tell her, stop drinking wine if you want to have a baby.
All right now.
So Samson was born. But Samson didn't realize, Samson realized the covering he had on life, because he knew the relationship with God that gave him the strength that he had. But Samson was still trying to figure out why he had his strength. So he wanted to be married. He went to the Philistine woman in chapter 14 of the book of Judges. I want to marry her, mom and daddy. I see something I like, but it wasn't right, because just like the lion, even though he could slay it, it might not be right for you, because the carcass might not be of the value that we see it need to be for us based upon our family. And it might spew out honey. It might have honey in there, but that honey might be mixed with blood. And all money ain't good money. It's like all honey ain't good honey. Mm-hmm. So moving forward, Samson got his revenge, because he tried to be a part of the Philistine family in the book of 14, in chapter 14. He tried to make right by him. Now granted, he was an arrogant man. He said, I'll bless everybody if you answer my riddle. He was an arrogant man, but he tried to do right by him. He tried to do family right by him, but they went behind his back, the Philistines, and they went to his wife, because she was a Philistine. They said, tell her the secret so we can have dominion, in so many words, over Samson. He think he's so big and so bad. Let us get the upper hand and bless our land. So she did it, not realizing that, she was going against her husband, because she thought it was no harm, no foul, because we all Philistines now. We all one family, but it wasn't like that. So Samson had to get his revenge, because he felt like, you took my wife from me, and now you made a judgment on my life. You took my wife, and then you gave my wife to another man. Wow, you tried to do everything I'm supposed to do for myself, but you want to do it for me, not knowing who my daddy is, Manoah, not knowing the love that he has for my mother, not knowing that he forgave my mother for everything when she was drinking hard, when she was eating heavy, when she was doing the wrong things that couldn't even have me. He forgave her, and now I'm here. You don't understand the God that's in me. Therefore, I'm angry. He got his revenge back a little bit. He killed a couple people, did this and that. But at the end of the day, it wasn't his revenge. He thought it was all about him, but it was God really showing the strength of who he is, even just in one man.
Amen.
So we learn about who Delilah is in chapter 16. So in chapter 16, verse 16 of the book of Judges, Samson went to Gaza, now where he saw a prostitute. And he went to bed with her.
Wow.
So now Samson is totally defiled.
Wow.
He done went to Gaza. Now Gaza, that's, there's Egypt and, there's different places. But if you look at the map, he was in a certain realm, a certain place. You know what I mean? And he was living his life because he was a hometown hero, a hometown king. He had all the muscles. He had looks, he had everything. And people that went against him, he thought he got back right against him, because he raised his own hand, let alone just letting God do the work for him. He had to be the show. He had to be the entertainment. So eventually every man gets weak. Eventually every man gets tired. Eventually every man, no matter how great you are, no matter how strong you are, if you don't know God, you're going to go searching for love. So Samson went searching for love in Gaza. And granted, it wasn't the right love. It was a prostitute. But he went to bed with her. And there was a trap set for him because he went to bed with her. As we continue to read, when the Gazites heard that Samson was there, they surrounded the place and waited in ambush for him all that night at the city gate. While they were waiting quietly, they said, let us wait until dawn, then we will kill him. But Samson stayed in the bed until midnight, when he got up and took hold of the doors of the city of the gate, along with the two gate posts, and pulled them out, bar and all, and he put them on his shoulders and took them to the top of the mountain overlooking Hebron. Now, when I first read that, I ran right through it because I didn't realize the significance of it. But when God brought me back to it, he said, Daniel, Samson was wrong because not only did he defile his wife, because technically he was still married, even though she gave her away or whatever, and this and that, whatever. He done tried to get extra help. Even besides going to God, he done went to a prostitute, and on top of that, he can't even get no rest. So he on the inside, he trying to wear himself out because he is so strong, he is so wonderful, he is so great, but he can't wear out the flame that God put in his heart.
Amen.
Even with a prostitute, he tried to take the flame out, but you can't take the flame out that God put in your heart, even with a prostitute. No matter where you go, he don't went to Gaza, he traveling, he on the foot, he trying to go somewhere. No matter where you go, there is no rest when you do wrong by God. There is no rest when you feed your family from a lion's carcass that was so bad that now the insects got to eat from it, but you still feed them honey thinking it's sweet. There is no rest when you do wrong by your family. There is no rest when you do wrong by people and you play with their lives like a joke. Samson from the beginning could have said, you know what? Because I am now a Philistine, because I am a Nazarite, and now I'm married a Philistine woman, I bring to you these offerings. I bring to you peace. I bring to you the glory of the God that is within me. No, he ain't do none of that. Samson came there playing with them people to answer the riddle of my joke, and I bless everybody. What's a riddle, man? I want to hurt you. Bro, you know how long I've been hungry? Bro, you know how long I've been cold? Right. So you come over here just marrying somebody, you know what I mean? Granted, she's somebody, but you just think you're going to have your way with all of us? Come on, man. You can be a blessing us, but you want to play with us. So again, God is using the Philistines, and God is using Samson, again, for us to know who Delilah is at this time. Again, so in verse 16, Samson went to Gaza, and he slept with a prostitute, but he got up in the midnight hour before dawn, because again, sometimes common people will tell on themselves. Because it was common to wake up during the dawn. It's common to wake up with the morning dew. It's common to wake up. It's common to wake up with morning dew falling on you, because when you're sleeping outside at night and that morning dew getting hitting you, you're going to wake up unless you cover yourself with the cover. I've been outside too. I don't sleep outside too. I don't sleep next to the fire too. So these common folk, without education to put a roof over their head, without the education and knowledge to cover themselves in a certain type of way, they said, we're going to wait till dawn to get them. But you can't wait on dawn for magnificence. You got to be immediately on that. And that's why Samson was able to get away from the Philistines again, because he had to show me that the Philistines were regular, average, common people at the time who didn't understand the magnitude of what they were dealing with.
All right now.
So as we continue to read along the message, it says in verse 4, chapter 16, sometime later. That wasn't then when he was in Gaza. This was sometime later. This wasn't then when he woke up at midnight. This was sometime later. This wasn't when everybody else woke up at dawn looking for him. This was sometime later. This wasn't when everybody was looking for the gates that he done ripped out from the ground and took to the mountaintop on Hebron. In verse 3, this was sometime later. He fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who lived in Sanford Valley. I said, God, where's Sanford Valley? He said, you got Google, you got internet, it's 2025, look it up yourself. So I looked up Sanford Valley. That's over there, Asia. Okay. Wow. So when you think about an Asiatic woman who come from a heritage of the Jewish descent, potentially, because it's from Israel over that way, and you got Gaza over that way, and you got Egypt over here. So you got Africans, you got the Arabs, you got the Jews, and now you got the Asiatic. So she a beautiful mixture of all these cultures that made Samson stop and see the wonder and the beauty that God can create. And Delilah, again, who was from Sanford Valley, the Philistines leaders went to her. I said, okay, God, what does that mean to me? Now, a prostitute gonna come to you when you want something. But the Philistines went to her. The Philistines went to her and said, persuade him to tell you where his great strengths come from, so we can overpower him, tie him up, and make him helpless. Each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver.
Wow. Lord.
Now, it wasn't just one man that gave her 1,100 pieces. It could have been 100 of them, because he said, each of us will give you. Now, some people can still say well, you know, she gave herself up for some money then, Daniel. She still told on the man for some money. She still used the man or whatnot. But you got to realize, Samson was a criminal. Samson was killing people. Samson was defiling his body, defiling his people by giving them stuff that that wasn't the Nazarite way. Samson was bigger than the Philistine government. He didn't want to work with the Philistines. He wanted to kill the Philistines. He didn't want to educate the Philistines. He wanted to kill the Philistines. He didn't want to be empathetic. He didn't want to teach them. He didn't want to show them the ways of God. His name wasn't Jesus Christ. He wanted to just kill. He wanted to beat him up with a jawbone, a donkey jawbone. He wanted to do whatever he could to show that I am Samson. And that's what he did. So, they came along Delilah. He fell in love with Delilah again because she was a mixture of everything. Every land that he done traveled through, more than likely, she had family coming from there because she was a part of the Philistine kingdom at the end of the day. So you had this beautiful Asiatic woman that Samson couldn't stay away from. Why? Because she represented what he was looking for. And how I knew what she represented, what he was looking for? Because the same things that the Philistines asked her to do, technically, is the same thing that every man wants when he come home to his wife. And what they asked her to do, they said, persuade him to tell you where his greatest strength comes from. So we can overpower him, tie him up, and make him helpless. What happens when you're in love with your wife? Your real wife, your wife that God has ordained you. She ties you up. She makes you feel helpless. She overpowers you because you let her overpower you. You let her tie you up. You let her make you feel helpless. You want a wife because you're tired of running. You're tired and you want to be loved. He said, what's your greatest strength comes from? Now, if Samson would have just put his foot down right there and said, my greatest strength comes from God.
Wow.
You know, maybe the story would have changed up right then. Maybe the Philistines would have said, you know what? Maybe we attacking Samson. We need to be asking ourselves, what did we do against God that caused over 1,000 of our people to die at the hands of Samson? But nobody thought that deep. But let's continue. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me, where does your great strength come from? She said this in verse 6, chapter 16. She said, please tell me, where does your great strength come from? How could someone tie you up and make you helpless? If that ain't a good woman saying, how magnificent are you, my king? You are so strong from land to land. Can't nobody hold you down. Tell me, what can I do to make your day or make your time feel how you want it to be? What can I do to make you weep? Because obviously you went to Gaza and she couldn't do it. And before then, you know, you fought a whole bunch of people with a jawbone and killed everybody. And then before then, you killed the lion with your bare hands and made it give up honey. And before then, you got a strong past of being, I wouldn't say reckless, but uncontrollable. You got a strong past of defining your own government when you don't even define the government that's within you. You just keep living with it, saying I'm a Nazarite, but not even saying I'm a child of God, I'm a blessed from God that was delivered here through an angel by him, was wonderful. Who first quoted himself as I am to my mother and educated her on how to have a healthy body to produce a son like me. But, moving forward, so Samson told her, if they tie me up, because Samson knew she wasn't for him, but at the end of the day, Samson said, you the only woman asked me, where's my strength? You the only woman asked me what make me weak. You the only woman I got into my mind. Everybody been trying to master my body. But you the only woman that has got into my mind. So now I'm learning. Delilah wasn't no regular woman, because if she was a prostitute and a whore, she would have never asked no questions. She just went straight to work. If Delilah was a prostitute, she wouldn't have asked no questions. She would have went straight to work. If she was a prostitute, then the Philistines, when they came to her, she would have went to them and said, hear ye, I have Samson. What do you want me to do? She didn't go to them. They came to her. So Samson told her, again, if they tie me up with 7 fresh bowstrings that they have been dried, I will become weak. So Samson, he knowing he can't trust her, but he playing along with the game anyway. Why? Because she's beautiful. He fell in love with her strength. She may have came from a great family. Who knows? Delilah could have been CIA, DEA, FBI. Delilah could have been the new Central Intelligence officer. But to common folk, again, to common folk that we're reading about in chapter 16, who rather wake up at dawn than wake up at the middle of the night, the common folk, she might look like a hoe. Because they ain't used to a woman who got a powerful mind, who can think, and who got a powerful position amongst powerful men. But moving forward. So, through chapter 16, you'll see through verses 6 through verses 13, Sampson and Delilah going back and forth. What make you weep? And every time Sampson tells Delilah what make him weep, before the Philistines come in, Delilah does what? She alerts Sampson and says, the Philistines are here. And I'll show you that. In verse 14, chapter 16 again in the book of Judges, she fashioned the braids with a pen and called to him and said, Samson, the Philistines are here. He awoke from his sleep. So anytime she tried to set him up against the Philistines, Samson she still did her job as a woman because he loved her. And she woke him up before the Philistines got there. So he was able to defend himself, whereas nobody else may have woken him up from his dreams. And he had to fight out of his dreams. Do you know how it feels to fight out of your dreams and not have control? That's like you being harassed while you're sleeping on the ground trying to find peace and somebody putting their hands on you. You got to fight out your dreams. That's a bad way to live. Samson was fighting out his dreams every day he lived. That's why he couldn't sleep past midnight when he visited the prostitute. He was fighting out his dreams. But Delilah took it upon herself to wake him up out of his dreams every time he was about to get attacked. Did she truly love him? Maybe not. Was she working? Yes, she was. Was it for who? The CIA, DEA, FBI? Who knows? But we do know that it was for the Philistine government because they came to her and they told her, this is what we need you to do. So as we continue to learn more about Delilah, as we continue to read, Samson finally got weak. And in verse 15, and again, this is chapter 16, book of Judges, verse 15, it says, how can you say I love you? She told him. Delilah telling this to Samson. How can you say I love you? Because love is, you got it all. Hey, I can't hide nothing. So when your heart is not with me, this is the third time you have mocked me and not told me what makes your strength so great. And because Delilah did her job as the FBI, as DEA, as whoever she was working for in the Philistine government, she nagged him all day and after and pleaded with him until she wore him out. And he told her, like any good husband would tell a good wife, or like any man in love would tell the woman he loved, my hair has never been cut because I'm a Nazarite to God from birth. If I am shaved, my strength will leave me and I'll become weak and be like any other man. That's a fleshly man. Because see, a real man after God would say, my God is the reason behind my strength because he gave a definition to my life by calling me a Nazarite. But, Samson, again, he was still so arrogant upon himself that he can't even acknowledge the fact that God gave him a definition as man. Beneath being a Nazarite, God gave me a definition as man, and this is who I am to live my life as a man each and every day. But instead of saying that God gave me my strength, he said it's my help. So Delilah did her job. Again, she may have worked for the FBI, CIA, DEA, whoever, and she went to the Philistines and said, okay, this is what it is. He a Nazarite. And the Philistines was like, man, I can't hear this. The understanding been in front of our face the whole time. And that's how God can hide you. God can hide your natural understanding from the man and make it so confusing that it's going to be on you to tell yourself who you are to people for them to understand you. Because if Samson had just been vocal about being a Nazarite from the very beginning, they would have understand his limitations and what they can entice him with. That's why the devil understands us, so he can try to entice us and give us many ways to break the yoke or our peace with God. But again, Samson had the opportunity to make himself right with God. The Philistines had the opportunity to make themselves right with God, but everybody had to choose their own walk because at the end of the day, they were still being used by God, and that's why God get the glory of it all at the end of the day. Amen. As I continue to read, I'll show you this. So in verse 18, again, I'm in chapter 16 in book of Judges, verse 18, when Delilah realized that he has told her the whole truth, she sent the message to the Philistine leaders, meaning the government. Come one more time, for he has told me the whole truth. The Philistine leaders came to her and brought her the money with them. So Delilah did her job. Delilah come from a good family, more than likely. She may have been a Philistine, but she had enough decency not to use her body. She used her mind to trap the strongest man of that time. She didn't have to be like every other Philistine woman. She didn't have to be like every other. Here, I'll make it personal. She didn't have to be like every other Sherman woman. She didn't have to be like every other Williams woman. She didn't have to be like every other Thomas woman. Any last name you can think. She didn't have to be like every other Lot woman. She didn't have to be like every other, any name of a person, last name. She didn't have to be like them. She had to be herself. Amen. And God was able to use her. Now, granted, her family, the Philistines, may have been her association, but she was still used by God to be somebody.
Amen.
So when at the time in verse 19 it says, then she left him, then she let him. Now that's another powerful message as well. Delilah didn't force him, she let him fall asleep on her lap. And then she called a man to shave off his 7 braids of his head. And in this way she made him helpless, and his strength left him weak. Then she cried, Samson, because she's a good woman, the Philistines are here. And when he woke up, he said, I will escape them again as I did before and shake myself free. But he didn't do it this time because the Lord had left him. The Lord left him because he put his health above God. The Lord left him because he said, it ain't God that make me strong, it's my hair. Okay. Well, God said, if it's your hair, then let it grow back. And he was defeated because he took himself away from God. So as we move into verse 21, the Philistines seized him and they gouged out his eyes. They brought him down to Gaza, the same place where he was with that prostitute, and bound him with bronze and shackles, and he was forced to grind grain in the prison. I mean, that same grain field he burnt down, he got to work for that same grain field now. That same place where he came through with the prostitute and left in the midnight hour, he got to go back there and live in shackles. So before I continue to move forward, and we all know the story of Samson as he got his justice, from his imprisonment at the time, his wrongdoing and how he was done wrong. The Philistine people also had to be recognized, and I say that because when Delilah did what she did for the Philistines, she brought peace to the land. When Samson was incarcerated, she brought peace to the Philistines. Therefore, the Philistine people had an opportunity to ask themselves, what did we do against God